Hey, welcome. This is Jelle growing bonsai. Hard to believe that this is the same tree. And all of that in just 1 year. This weekend we had a nice weekend with a friend, and at the end of the weekend he said, if you want to have this white pine, take it with you. I'm uninspired, see what you can do with it. In summer I don't think you should work them. The only thing that I can do now is remove the old wire, because that's starting to bite in a little bit. And then in early spring I'm going to completely rework this tree. Now, as expected, the wire was in quite deeply, leaving quite a few big scars. And branches like these, where you can basically see the whole wire deeply embedded in the branch, are weak. Now I have decided that I want to encourage this tree to backbud. And what I'm doing is I'm going through branches like these, and I look at all these old needles that are still here. Effectively there's 2-3 years worth of needles on this branch, and you get very long branches like this one, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years worth of growth with only 2 or 3 branches on them. Now, by removing all these old needles and adding a lot of fertilizer, putting this in full sun, I'm encouraging the tree to start backbudding. Particularly these branches that are sitting here at the top, they don't need all that many needles. They will grow quite well with few needles, but they do provide a lot of shade for the rest of the tree. So I am quite drastic removing the growth and the needles around these top extensions. This way a lot of light can go down into the tree, and this is of course a little bit of a balancing act. On the one hand I want the tree to get as strong as possible so I can work it drastically over winter. On the other hand I want lots of sun to enter the tree to help in backbudding. Catch 22. A lot of old needles. There's a little side branch here which is at least a year old, so everything until the side branch can go. And then I actually like to clean it out a little bit more than that, giving the side branch also space to grow into and a little bit of their own light. Leave some needles of last year. But open it up enough that light can penetrate these branches, and then along this branch I hope that over the next year we'll get backbudding. One more, all done. Now for backbudding, ideally I'd also wire the branches down, but I want to let this regain strength, and it is early summer, not the ideal time to wire out a white pine. It's been well fertilized. I'll give it a bit of a shower and then it's going to go back into the sun, hopefully to get lots and lots of backbudding, and ready to continue with the wiring out of this tree in fall. Right, we're heading into autumn. The tree has grown really well. You can see the needles are nice and long. There's a big difference between last year's needles and this year's needles. It's not of a concern now. It's actually good because I want this tree to be full of power in the development stage. And now we need to really look at the design. Basically the tree moves towards the camera right now. Roughly like this would be the final potting angle. But this is very straight. This is very straight. Now I could split this, add heavy wire, raffia, and warp it in any shape that I would like to. But this is a white pine, and the 5-needle white pine from Japan is a little bit weaker in our climate, even though it is grafted upon black pine roots. You can see here the swelling here. That is a very clear indication that this is a different species than the species here. And traditionally black pine is used as a base, so that's what I'm assuming. The graft is done really nicely. You can see the transition is nice and smooth. There's no big bumps. So I don't really want to damage this bark more than needed. I've prepared a little piece of wood and I'm going to wedge that here in between the two trunks. Then I can use a tension wire between this point here and that point there and bring this back up. see what happens to the trunk. Well, the wooden block falls out, but effectively what it was showing is that you get slight curvatures now in the trunk as a branch that has grown down and comes up underneath the mother trunk. That's what I'm going to replicate. Now, if I look at the crown of the tree, there is a bit of pruning to be done. And what you can see is that there's a very big branch coming forward right here. And I could wire it in place, but it should then come up here to be a tertiary crown. But I don't think that's going to work. It's old, it is hardened. Probably best to just clip it off. And I can, because there's lots and lots of branches here in the back that I could use. So if I take this off, there's still plenty of foliage here that I can use to wire out here into a complete crown. As I bend this out, there's a risk of this breaking open and basically the lower branch becoming detached from the main trunk. So a little tie wrap here, just for the first couple of weeks, to reduce that risk. This doesn't have to be all that tight, it is just there to support it. But over the course of the next couple of hours it will of course become very tight if I start pushing this out. I don't ask for money, I don't tell you to buy anything, and I don't use any affiliate links. However, it would help me if you would subscribe to my channel, hit the like or leave a comment, and maybe even share a video. That way my videos get seen by more people and it's more interesting for me to keep producing. Now if we look in here at the lower branch, we see there's quite a few branches going inwards, like this one. Very long, only 3 or 4 growing tips and growing inward, so this is going to go. Same with this one, this doesn't really seem to contribute much, although this one could go outwards and compete with the one in the back. I'll look at that later. This one however is really growing inwards and doesn't bring anything to the table, so that could also go. So this now really cleans it up, right? And this I can clean up later on, that can dry out for now. Same with this one, this is a small little branch, and I've got a nice branch sitting here, so this doesn't really help. Here I have a nice branch that comes out and creates a pad. So this is not really needed, it just clutters up the view. So I can also remove this, but I'm leaving a little bit more because this branch is actually what holds the wire in place here. Now what you have is a very nice branch here to the front that I can wire out as a pad. There's one here in the back. There's another one in the back which I'll have to look at when I'm wiring up. There's nothing growing here from the inside anymore. And this is actually going to be wired out later on. It's going to create a pad like that. So now it's time to start cleaning out all these tufts. So I'm really going to just clip off the old needles to the point where it started growing this year, pair by pair, or actually quintet by quintet. A lot of work, slow going, but it's the only way to avoid popping off any buds that might be still in there. You can already see there's a new bud forming here in the middle. This is for next year already, and little side buds as well, so I have to be careful not damaging those. And if you then look in carefully here, you also see there's a little side branch already forming. Now this might be a little bit difficult to see, but the top branch here I want to bring in into this space. As it was wired before and it has big grooves here, I cannot wire the same direction as the grooves are. I want to wire the other direction, which actually would mean that I bend the branch the other direction. So I have to be a bit careful here. Don't laugh at me if the wire is the wrong direction. So this is the continuation of the trunk line, which is going to come up and over into this space. So there's a few loose branches, such as this one, which I will have to wire out at some point, but there's a few little buds on there, so I don't want to disturb it. The pads are pretty much in position. Now it's just a matter of letting it grow out and establish. All in all, quite happy with it. After first starting, of course, the tree still looks a little bit rough, but I don't want to disturb it too much. And as said, over time, these candles will come back up and form normal pads. Right now, it is all about getting light and sun on the inside, help with backbudding. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with this. So it's early winter and I would like to adjust a few things here. This is of course putting a lot of pressure on the bark here and there, and these wires are putting a lot of pressure here at the outsides of the bend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put a tension wire here from this point to the yin here, and the same here from this point also to the yin here, and therefore keep the curvature, and then just have a bit of wood here in between to keep the branches apart. Now, as before, a little bit of rubber tubing to reduce the pressure and damage that the wire does here on the bark, leading it up. And now I have a choice. There's a tiny little yin here and there's a bigger yin there, which is a lot more accessible. This might be too weak. Let's try this. How strong is this? It is actually quite strong. And I see there is two little nubbins here as well. Maybe I can use something like this. No, this is too weak. I'm going to go for this little yin. So I'm looping it around here, over the side and into the back. And here I just take these two ends and I twist them together. Now this I can of course then do for a long time, increasing the tension on the branch. Initially it will be quite difficult to increase the tension, but once this starts to bend I can tighten it quite easily. It's just an awkward spot. This can come up a little bit, just like that. This needs wire. Oddly enough, this was not wired. Let me just do a few small readjustments. Yeah, something like that should do for now. And then in spring, probably a repot. Looks pretty healthy now. There's lots of backbudding coming up. Right, we're March and the buds are swelling. They're nice, shiny, they're about a centimeter long. This tree is doing well. There's lots of backbuds. One little branchlet here probably died, but the bud doesn't look dead yet. I'm leaving it in place. Time to repot. I'm going to get rid of all this, well, weeds. Then I'm going to plant it in pumice. And I'm using some leftover pumice which I got from a very, very healthy black pine that I just repotted an hour ago. Next to this I have a small pot, which I think is too small for this tree. I have a bigger pot and I have the original pot. I'll have to see which pot I'm going to use. I'm trying to get it back into the original pot. Now what you can tell, there's lots and lots of roots, but most of these are not from pine. They're from all these weeds that are growing. So all these white tips, just weeds. The whole root ball is quite wet. You can see that the roots have actually overtaken the root ball. The mesh is all the way buried here. So this is going to be a lengthy repot. I'm going to slowly have to tease open all these roots. Gently around the perimeter, and as I reach them I pull out weeds, which helps open up the root ball, hoping for some healthy root tips. Well, managed to reduce the root mass quite substantially, and now it is time to go back into the original pot, and I want it a little bit flipped to the front. So now this is more or less the position that I'm aiming for, making sure that the pads of course are horizontal, that the that the top of the tree comes a little bit towards us, and it is quite far into the right side of the pot because it comes towards me. Now it's a matter of putting some of the old pumice in, quite coarse grained, and then I'll fill it up. And next to the finer pumice that I'm going to put on top, I'm also adding some blade tone. It is some expanded shale. It is very dry, which helps to keep this root ball a little bit drier because, well, you can see there's moss growing here on the trunk. Actually, I should remove that before potting up. But yeah, it needs some cleaning up there. I would say that's very, very near. I find that adding substrate in layers, wiggling it in and filling it up further, helps in getting all the substrate between the roots more easily. This is some of the mycorrhiza which I took from the black pine, and I'm just going to put pieces of this in the root ball in the middle of the substrate, and that way I hope that it will help colonize this a little bit better because there were not a lot of mycorrhiza available. And now basically all that's missing is a bit of water, and then it goes back into the garden waiting for spring. And then I'll show you a few more shots as it is recovering in spring. I might adjust a few of the little branches here and there to create even more light in there. But yeah, quite happy with how this is developing. Of course I can now pluck all of this, but I want the tree to remain strong. I want backbudding, so I'm not going to remove any needles this year. I'm just going to let it grow for a little bit. Taking things slow helps in survival of your trees, and I am pretty sure that I'm going to be very, very sad that I said this if in spring the tree was not fit enough and branches start dying or even the whole tree dies. But I think the timing is perfect. Yeah. Hard to believe that this is the same tree. And all of that in just 1 year. Now, let's look at these candles. Yeah, I'm going to reduce the length of some of them just to balance the energy a little bit, because some of them are a lot longer than others. And with that, we've reached the end. Thank you for watching. See you next time.